Yes, hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Procurement Software.site's March live demo session. Very warm welcome. And today's live demo is with our software partners at Vendorful. Vendorful are a New York-based supplier management, RFP, everything that is upstream in the sourcing process, Vendorful can do. And we're going to show you today how you can manage all of this in one mini suite. So it can do, in terms of your core procurement activities, Vendorful can do pretty much everything apart from procure to pay. If you're looking at what typically a core procurement team would need to do on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis as part of managing their procurement operations, both tactical and strategic when it comes to sourcing and vendor management. So just before I hand over to my co-pilot today, Peter Bonney from Vendorful. Hello, Peter.
Hey, James. How's it going?
Just if you're watching this, then just ping us in the comments and let us know where you're watching this from, just so as we can see how many different countries we've got represented today and where you're joining us from. This session, we do have a recording of this session that we can send to you after the event if you clicked on attend, and we will also upload it to my YouTube channel as well. So if you do have to pop out halfway through, or if the phone rings, or if the dog barks, or anything else that distracts you during a typical webinar, then don't worry, we've got your back. We will give you the recording. So with that all done, without any further ado, I will hand over the reins to Peter to introduce himself and introduce Vendorful, and we can then jump straight into screen sharing and yeah, show you what this tool can do. Wow, yeah. So Cairo, Egypt, Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia. So two very different parts of the world. Hi, Kareem. Hi, Chester. So, Peter, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on. So, yeah, I mean, you sort of described Vendorful as kind of a mini suite, sort of upstream procurement. It is exactly how we think about it. I guess in kind of, procurement box parlance, we are a source to contract solution or an intake to contract solution. I really actually kind of hate those boxes because I think it sort of suggests a linear workflow where none exists. If you kind of think about the way people actually operate in the real world, there is some element of supplier discovery, of course, that happens in certain categories and certain situations. But if you think about your kind of big supplier relationships, the things that require a lot of your focus, you've got those relationships, right? Like you're not going to discover Amazon. Your company is already working with Amazon. I don't care which company you are, whether you're talking about Amazon Web Services or buying stuff from Amazon, your company has a relationship with Amazon. And sort of this notion of kind of centering a workflow around sourcing them or intaking Amazon, it just doesn't make any sense. The supplier relationship, that's really kind of the core of everything from our perspective, whether it's onboarding new suppliers, working with existing suppliers, running sourcing events, which may include new suppliers, but very frequently include existing suppliers or old suppliers. It's really in our minds got to revolve around your supplier and vendor relationships, and so that's where we sort of center everything, and hence our name. I'm looking forward to kind of showing everyone what that means in practice.
Fantastic. So that's a great introduction and a great overview in terms of where you sit with regards to competitor products and other different sort of sub niches and subcategories within the procurement tech space. I just realized I had my wrong settings on my mic, so hopefully anyone that's listening to this, I'm a little bit clearer now. Got my nice podcasting mic and it was coming through my headphones, so I hope audio is better for anyone that's listening. So yeah, if you want to bring up your screen, Peter, and let's have a look under the hood and see what it can do. So for anyone that's not joined one of these before, typically how this works is we'll do about 25-minute demo of the tool. And then if you've got any questions for Peter while he's doing the demo, just pop them in the comments. We can either bring them up on the screen while Peter is mid-demo, if there's something that springs into your mind while he's doing it, or we can take them at the end and answer anything that you might have for Peter after he's finished demoing the tool to you. So yeah, Peter, over to you.
All right, great. You're seeing my screen there, James?
We've got it. Yeah.
All right, excellent, great. Yeah, so like I said, we center everything around the supplier relationship. But before you even get to sort of centering everything around the supplier relationship, we center everything around what the user needs to do. So the first thing you see when you log into Vendorful is your tasks. What is actually on your plate? What do you have to deal with? And this kind of will give you a flavor of the range of things that are available. I'm going to cover a little terminology stuff here because some words mean different things to different people. Like one of the words you see up here is survey, which in our system means performance evaluations, as opposed to informational surveys, which we sort of talk about in a different way. But I just want to clarify that and kind of when I start using different terms, so people sort of understand what we're saying. But you see here, I'm logged in. I've got some surveys that I've completed. I have some various projects that are assigned to me, contract tasks, etc. And I can also see the tasks that I've assigned to other people. And this is kind of intended to just again focus your attention on what actually needs to happen. But then taking a step back from the immediate tasks, like I said, everything in the system revolves around supplier relationships. So we think of ourselves as a supplier relationship management platform primarily. Now, I don't have a background in procurement. My background is in financial services. My co-founder, David, his background was in tech. We both came at procurement from our non-procurement business exposure and our interactions with, either formal procurement activities or informal procurement activities, just the challenges that we had in our kind of day-to-day business life on buying things, right? So when we approached this, we weren't really thinking about it in terms of the ways that people in procurement or analysts in the procurement space kind of qualify and classify different solutions. We were sort of thinking about the problem and how do you approach the problem. And we started with an e-sourcing solution. And we very quickly realized once we sort of had it in the hands of users that sourcing is just kind of a little sliver of the interactions that people have with their suppliers on a daily basis. And really the supplier relationship, that's kind of the big thing, like understanding who you're working with, what they offer, what you're buying from them, how much you're spending, how they're performing, and then how your end users can engage with them and how you can engage with them. That really seemed like a much more interesting and bigger problem to us. And so that's really kind of where the product evolved. But again, with us coming from a non-procurement background, we were just sort of thinking outside the box, so to speak, of like how to, we weren't thinking about like sort of checking a box on, building a SRM solution or a risk solution or a diversity solution or a sourcing solution. For us, all of those things are related problems. And it just doesn't make sense to kind of tackle them separately. I think you really need to have it all in one place. So with that background, the core of the system here is our vendor management table, if you will. And the intention is to sort of be like a CRM, but for procurement. I've used CRM systems for a long time now. They make a lot of sense. And I think it's striking to me how much we know about our customers and prospects that we take for granted because we have a system for tracking it. And
conversely, how little we know about our suppliers, right?
Exactly. And largely because you don't have a good place of tracking it. I mean, most people we engage with, they're tracking it in Excel, if they're tracking it at all. Mostly it's just like, hey, I've got a bunch of emails and, tribal knowledge in people's heads. So if you've ever used a CRM, this will kind of just look a little bit like a CRM, right? You've got, ways of filtering all your different suppliers. You can have your category trees, multiple category taxonomies, geographic taxonomies. It's all configurable. And then you can filter by whatever attributes are relevant, diversity information, demographic information, basic geography, etc. Whatever it is that you are storing, whatever is relevant to your suppliers, certifications, etc. All of it trackable and Vendorful, all of it configurable to your needs, and then filterable, searchable. So if we drill in here, basically this is your vendor card, and it's kind of like your one-stop shop for everything you know about your vendor. So let me jump into Amazon, because that's a little more interesting. So here we see Amazon, right? And in this demo environment, we're actually just using them as an IT provider. We've got a contract with them. We've got a score, which I'll talk about, the kind of the current performance, which comes from a variety of sources. Description of who they are, the business units that are working with them, if any are relevant. You can edit this, and our IT team primarily engages with them. Categories that we're dealing with, that we're engaging Amazon with, and then all the information that we know about Amazon. So basic information like tax ID, etc. Are they a diversity supplier? No, they're not. But this information is available, trackable, so you can actually start answering questions like, how much are we spending with diverse suppliers? Or if you have a pretty good supplier diversity program, allowing your end users to identify diverse suppliers and tie this information into your RFX, into whatever bid activities you're engaging, so that people can actually start making progress on diversity goals or other ESG goals. Again, everything you're seeing here is configurable to your needs. Does that make sense, James?
That definitely makes sense. Yeah. And other than the sourcing functionality, which, as you say, you sort of grew out from, this essentially could be, especially if your data in your ERP is coming through multiple different sources, and you've grown maybe through acquisition. Yep. This could potentially be your single source of truth for your vendor master data as well. Yep. Couldn't it?
Yeah, actually, thank you for saying that word. I should have said that word, that phrase, single source of truth. That really is exactly the goal, and that's a common use case for this. So let me give you an example. One of our customers has 8 different ERP systems, serving 10 different countries, and sort of exactly the story you described, where the IT infrastructure got built up over time in a kind of haphazard way through acquisitions, through regional expansions, through local people making decisions that were not necessarily tied into the global IT strategy, if you will, or maybe there was no global IT strategy at the time. But whatever,
and that's the norm, isn't it? Especially in manufacturing companies, especially, that's the norm rather than the exception, I would almost say.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly right. And then, and we've seen it arise for so many different reasons, but like it's exactly as you said. It's very common, arguably the norm. And so what that particular organization and other customers in Vendorful are doing, but I'm going to focus on that one. They're a good case. They've got they have suppliers that might be operating in, say, 5 of the, or serving countries which are related to 5 of the 8 ERP systems, or 3 of the 8 ERP systems, right? And so there's supplier master data, supplier activity data that they want to track and have available to people in other countries, right? Outside of say somebody in Canada updates a bit of supplier information about a supplier that serves Canada, the US, and Mexico, right? The person using the ERP in the US also wants to have access to that updated information. Previously, there was no way of syncing that data. So the use case there really is the SAP instance in Canada gets updated through an API connection. It goes and updates Vendorful, and then Vendorful, through the configuration, sees that this supplier is, in the Canada ERP, the US ERP, and the Mexico ERP, and then sends that data out to sync it to, the US and Mexico ERPs, so that you have both a central source of truth here in Vendorful, but also updated information in the systems where people want to access it, right? Because, it's one thing to say, hey, you've got a central source of truth, ignore these other systems. but not everybody in the organization is going to be logging into Vendorful or is even going to know about Vendorful, right?
Yeah.
You've got people who are using the ERP. You can't ask them to log into another system to do something that they're used to doing in the ERP. So it's not just having the central source of truth, but having the central clearinghouse of truth to keep all other sources of truth that people reference in sync, if that makes sense.
So to make sure that everyone that is used to using their sort of source of truth or standard system, it's not anticipated or expected or required that they have to change their way of working, because there will automatically be a feed that maintains the data in Vendorful, but they don't necessarily have to use it. Got it?
Yeah, exactly. If I can just go off on like a brief,
go ahead.
Little digression there. I think maybe you can help me come up with a term for this, because the thing that I've kind of been rolling around in my head is there's a lot of talk about best of breed, and I'm a big believer in the promise of a best of breed approach. The challenge with a best of breed approach is that in practice, I see a lot of organizations, they say, we're going to add a best in breed sourcing solution. We're going to add a best in breed contract management solution. And what they've done when they've added those two systems to, say, an ERP and a P2P system is now, whereas they had two systems that were kind of relevant to procurement, the ERP and the P2P, now they've got four, right? And they don't necessarily all sync with each other because they're not designed to that, right? For that, they're the best of breed, right? They're supposed to be a really good e-sourcing solution, a really good contract solution, and they're centered around that use case, as opposed to being the orchestrator, if you will, the kind of the best of breed platform, the best of breed hub. And, so that's, although I sort of struggle to describe it, that's another aspect of what we've been driving towards. My dog is saying hi. So yeah, besides being the central source of truth, we also want to be the best of breed hub, so that you can actually really, leverage,
push data to the other systems. Yeah,
exactly. Like if you there are lots of good e-sourcing solutions out there, right? If you like other ones more than ours, great. How are you going to have your e-sourcing solution kind of sync up with everything else that you're working with?
And that's a great point, because I think to your point, there are e-sourcing solutions out there that have a more sort of comprehensive list of features than Vendorful would do, because they're a pure play e-sourcing tool. But it's all around your philosophy, isn't it? And to be fair, there's no right or wrong answer there. It's all about what's the end game. What do you want to get from a digital procurement implementation? If the answer is that you want to have as many features as possible in one platform without having to run one of the legacy brand procurement suites that cost an arm and a leg and take several months, sometimes years to implement, then I think this is a viable solution in that case. There's a couple of questions that have come in, Peter, that I'll just flash up just quickly. Maybe if we can tackle these before we move on.
Sure.
So the first one is from Sandeep, which is, how do you capture multiple locations under the same supplier in the dashboard? So if you've got, I think what he means there is if you have a parent company and then different country locations.
Yep. Let me find you an example. So we have what is called here we go. Oh, nope. Oh no, do I now I'm struggling to, well, all right, I can actually just create one on the fly here. Well, instead of clicking around to find one. Basically, you see this button here, you can split any of these vendor relationships into multiple entities. And so let's call this this is Belize Corp. So let's call it Belize Corp, I don't know, South. I can create that. And now you've got multiple entities linked under the same parent company. And so they'll be related, they'll be tied together. There are contact management features where contacts can be associated both with the parent or the entire group, if you will, or they can be associated with specific entities within that group.
Okay, so it's possible to set that up in the system, but there's nothing that links into something like Dun & Bradstreet then that would recognize where you've got maybe duplicate vendors or parent-child vendor relationships that you perhaps weren't aware of, I guess.
Well, okay, so that's a different question. So deduping is a topic in itself, and we've got some admin tools to help with that. And if you do have third-party data sources, we're an API first company, and we happily integrate with pretty much any major third-party system. We use an integration platform. The one we use is called Workato, but there's other people might be familiar with things like MuleSoft or Informatica. And the way those systems work is essentially we have a connector to the system, and that system has existing out-of-the-box connections to something, typically hundreds or thousands of different kind of well-known systems. So Dun & Bradstreet is one, NetSuite, Ariba, Microsoft Dynamics, QuickBooks, et cetera. And in other third-party, kind of data aggregators, I guess, which I'm now that I've got Dun & Bradstreet in my head, I'm kind of struggling to think of others, but things like
no, that's fine. So it is possible. Then it just requires a third-party integration to facilitate it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, we've got those out of the box, and there's a variety of ways we can help with that. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Next one, and let's cover this quickly. So I know we've got the sourcing and contracts module and reporting that we want to have a quick look at as well. This one's from Nadia. Can you create supplier master data through your system, which can then be synchronized live and populate the ERP system? I think what Nadia means is, can you create it in Vendorful and then have that push into SAP or into Oracle or whatever ERP you're using?
Yes. So it can go multiple ways. And like, look, there's a lot of stuff here. We're never going to cover it. There are multiple ways for data to come in through the system. It can be entered by your side, like, if you see this little add vendor button, or you can edit data here inside system. Like if I want, we're missing a phone number for, Amazon, right? So, if this is now, if we're connected to an ERP, that will now be synced out to an ERP or whatever other system it's linked to. There are also intake forms to take on new suppliers, right? So that's another way the data can come in to the system, or data can come in through an ERP. It can be, or any other system. It can be sort of originated in one of those systems, pushed into Vendorful, and then Vendorful can push it out to other systems. So we're agnostic to how the data is managed. Setting up those flows really depends on the organization, and that's part of the onboarding process. Got it.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, let's move on because I'm just conscious of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm going off on rants and getting sidetracked. All right, so I want to talk about supplier performance, because this is sort of a critical thing, and supplier evaluations and scorecards and ratings. Like I said, we center the supplier relationship at everything. We put the supplier relationship at the center of everything. And so for us, understanding your supplier performance is a critical piece. I don't understand how you can kind of have like a vendor management system and not have scorecards incorporated in that. It's just a core part of what you're doing, right? So the way it works in Vendorful is we've got the ability to create kind of aggregated ratings, scorecards, if you will, based on whatever combination, this is configurable, whatever combination of performance surveys, and then what we call metrics in our system. So in this case, we've got a risk rating metric set up, we've got a performance metric set up, and we have a sustainability metric set up. And you see we've got this weighting applied, and then we have the different scores coming in from each of those metrics, along with the performance surveys, leading, combining into a total score for that supplier, over the evaluation period. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. And then, this can also be kind of visualized in a visible scorecard. So if we go ahead and look at, AWS, we've got a variety of visualizations here, radar charts, bar charts, et cetera. We can compare them to other suppliers, see how they, rank against each other, et cetera. And then also like track that performance over time. How has AWS's, balance score evolved over time across multiple evaluations, et cetera. So, again, understanding who your suppliers are, what you're doing with them, how they're performing, how much you're spending with them. Like, I think you got to have all that information in one place, and that's what we aim to do. So, You mentioned contracts. I'll very briefly. Let me actually go back to Amazon, because again, we have these different modules. We've got a sourcing module, a contract module, but everything is tied in through the supplier relationship. So this is not a contract repository that kind of sits in a directory and you've got to have the naming conventions right and make sure you understand where everything is. No, it's all linked to Amazon, right? So we've got this Amazon master agreement here. If I click in here, it is linked to any associated contracts. In this case, we've got a statement of work. We've got all the metadata associated with that contract, key documents, key terms, if you want to track those, notifications. So, someone's going to receive an alert before this contract renews or expires. And if we want to drill down into the related agreement, it's just a click. Everything is linked together. And again, tied back to the supplier. So it's all very easy to navigate. No searching through your email, searching through directories like I'm looking for the AWS-DNS-cloud, 2022 contract. Oh no, I found the 2021 contract. It's so annoying.
Yeah, and the beauty of that, I guess, is while there are bunch of other solutions out there that do contract authoring and signature and clause library and all that type of stuff, especially more in the sort of legal tech space.
Yep.
The beauty of this is that the contracts that are in that repository will automatically populate to the vendor records, and they'll automatically link back to any sourcing events that you're running.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And the thing with contract systems, like I said, we play nice with other systems. If you've got a contract system, your company has a contract system that you like, that's great. We're never going to build Ironclad or Icertis, right? Those are excellent systems. They are primarily legal systems, though, right? And they're designed to solve legal team problems. Sometimes they're designed to solve sales team problems. They're rarely designed to solve procurement team problems. Most of what procurement needs out of a contract system is they need to be able to find the contracts. Like, that's the biggest thing, right? And so, that's where we've focused. But, again, we play nice with other systems. So if you've got an Icertis or Ironclad or something like that, that's great. And we're very happy to sync data from that. I want to be conscious of time. I want to show one cool thing. Like, I haven't said the two magic letters yet on this webinar, which is AI. And I've kind of been an AI curmudgeon, but man, the world has changed over the last few months. So I'm going to stop sharing because I need to flip over to a different demo environment to kind of show this off. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have said AI. Okay, it's a buzzword. But it is large language models have changed everything. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are now. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So haven't talked about our e-sourcing module yet. So you're going to very briefly talk about e-sourcing. You can run RFX events. You can run e-auctions. We recently ran an auction, or one of our customers ran an auction for contingent labor of all things. Got a great result. I think they saved something like 20% over their expected rates, which is millions of dollars, because they're a huge outsourcer of technology contingent labor. So fantastic result for them. A lot of people don't like to use auctions for various reasons, but we strongly recommend them. But anyway, what I'm going to talk about is the latest, newest thing, which is so new that I'm taking a little bit of a risk demoing this. It's not totally ready for prime time, but what do you think we should buy, James? So, I mean, I've logged into a CRM system RFP. Like, I guess we can go with that.
What should we buy? Ocean freight.
Ocean freight. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're looking for an ocean freight provider. All right. What does our organization look like? Where are we shipping to and from?
Let's say we're shipping from India to Europe.
Okay. India to Europe. Any volume indications?
40-foot containers, full So FCL, full container loads.
All right, you're getting into terminology that I don't know. So
that's why I picked ocean freight, because I knew you were going to ask me difficult questions.
Yeah. All right. So I mean, look, we can add more stuff as it says here. Like the more general you can be, the better the result. But like, sorry, the more specific you can be. But general also works. So let's just go and do this. Oh, something went wrong. That is awesome. Okay. All right, man. Doing stuff on the fly. I'm getting myself in trouble. All right. So let's. It does take a minute, so it's working away. Let's just see how it does. So we can just kill the time here. That is one little issue with these models. They are still pretty slow. So, got to work on the UX of this. So it's a little bit more engaging than just kind of sitting here, waiting. Usually takes about 40 to 60 seconds, which on a webinar feels like an eternity, but here, not so bad. Okay. So we've got like a little summary here. This is actually not so great. This was ocean freight. I haven't actually tried anything like ocean freight. I'll show you what it does for something like technology in a minute, because it's usually a little bit where we've got more data. It's able to get better results for sort of obvious reasons, but it does.
That's like anything in beta, though, isn't it? It takes a while for the machine learning to pick up on what the customer's asking it for.
Yeah, but you can see what it's doing here. Basically, you gave it some parameters. It produced a little summary of what you're looking for, which we can then put into the RFP, and you can edit and to your needs, and then basically starts producing your RFP questionnaire if you want, and this can be pasted in. Let me kind of you picked a tough one for me there, James. Man. All right. Why don't we go with something?
Should rehearse this, shouldn't we?
Yeah, exactly. No, but that's good. Sort of I don't want to oversell what it does. It creates kind of a rough framework you can start with, gives you some generalities for things where there's more data. Let's say an ERP system, same company, right? Okay. We are looking for a new ERP. Let's call it a cloud-based ERP system. System to replace our 5 on-premise ERP installations. We are based in the UK with operations in India. Let's keep it general. Why not? Let's say, I don't know. I won't even go. I was going to say, well, we could go with company size or whatever. We won't do that. We'll just go with that. See what it does. And again, it's going to take about kind of 30 to 60 seconds to to produce a result. But yeah, so the more data, the more training data, and the more experience it gets with working with your own organization, working with organizations in general on things like ocean freight, the better a job it's going to do. There is a ton of data, training data available for IT systems, right? So you can see with this one, it's going to, I didn't mention anything about like IT, integrations and things like that, just based on the context of understanding things about ERP systems. Like it knows that, like, okay, this requires implementation. It's going to require data migration. It's going to, require integration and training, right? I mean, there's none of that information provided up there. It's I just said, we want to buy an ERP. And, there's just so much knowledge and context available. And, oh, look at that. It even did the British spelling of organizations. That is funny. I have not seen it do that. That is cool. I did not expect it to get that context right. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of promise here. I think that things are going to change radically. Like, forget the coming years, like the coming months. These systems are evolving so rapidly, and changes are happening so fast. that I think, a couple weeks from now, a couple months from now, the performance of something like this is going to be mind-blowing. But yeah, so I think this is I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to be a big productivity boost to people who are looking to buy things in categories where they don't have experience. Every procurement team in the world is understaffed right now. They are woefully under-resourced in terms of the tools they need to operate. We get asked by prospective customers if we can send them an RFP for our own solution all the time. And the reason why people do that is because it's just hard to develop domain expertise and develop subject matter expertise and get the right context for putting out a solution. So rather than asking a vendor for a template, a tool like this, is a much better, much more objective starting point. And of course, all these things are editable, and you can, just use this as your, as I said, your starting point. Doesn't have to be the end all be all. You don't have to send it out like this, but much better to start.
It's a start, isn't it? It's a start. And if you, and like with anything that's AI based, you'll always need someone with some real intelligence behind it to be able to interpret whether the AI has given you something that's garbage or usable. But having something that you can start from and edit is much easier than having to start from scratch, I think is the point. But I mean, this is like you say, this is in beta and it's just starting out, but this over time has huge potential to develop and grow. It's and as you admit, it's a little bit rough around the edges at the moment, but as in terms of a time saver as part of putting tenders together, I agree with you. I think this has real potential.
Oh man. Anyway, so I'm super excited about this, and it's incredible how much more capable these systems have gotten just in the last couple months, and a couple months from now it's going to be mind blowing.
Can we have a quick look at the procurement performance management reporting module that you've got as well?
Yeah. So let me go back to so find my share screen here. Okay. So let's see, do I have a dashboard set up in here? This is not such a great dashboard. Oh, we've got some information here. Basically, we have a wide range of different reports available for things related to your vendor information, your spend, your contracts, cross tabulation of spend data against categories, and then metrics. Which is basically the things we talked about there, where we sort of have your risk rating, sustainability, performance, whatever metrics you are tracking related to your suppliers, both at an aggregate level and then, down to the individual vendor level. So let's go back to our favorite here, Amazon. So, we have a variety of, got sort of our reporting data, performance tracked over time at the individual level, in addition to performance surveys, and kind of the ability to drill down and look at the components of their performance, how different people rated them, where all the data is coming from, and then again, like I showed earlier, kind of the ability to report on that at the as a scorecard, both at an individual vendor level and comparing multiple vendors. So if we just kind of pick one here, and like just to pick a random chart, we've got a variety of different visualizations here, and looking at kind of performance ratings and KPIs over time, and visualizations of how they relate to each other. So a range of reporting capabilities. Really sort of depends on the data that you've got available, the data you're tracking, and then how we link it all together. And actually, one last thing, because when I hear the word reporting, I tend to jump straight to visualizations. But I know that a big thing that people want to do with reporting is actually they just want to filter, right? So like if I want to find a veteran-owned business that sells, let's say, want to find veteran-owned textile business. Actually, don't know if I have any set up in the system. I do. Look at that. I've got a veteran-owned textile business here. A1 Widgets. So now I have found my veteran-owned textile business that I want to give an order to as part of our supplier diversity mandates. So there is kind of big R reporting, which I think of as kind of visualizations and doing like data aggregation and kind of analysis of your data set overall, and then kind of small R reporting, which is I just need to like be able to filter down my data set efficiently and identify specific suppliers or specific data points based on all the data I've got. Does that make sense?
Yeah, fantastic. So I think that's pretty much. Is there anything that we didn't touch that you just wanted to?
Run
through before we wrap up. I mean, I know we've just scratched the surface, but
I don't look. Feature overload is not the point. The point is that we've got. I mentioned intake. There are approval workflows for changes to vendor data. All of this sort of audit trails, et cetera, like all the kind of features you would expect around vendor information management, supplier management. But the main thing is that like just taking a step back, the goal and I think the promise of Vendorful is to have that entire supplier relationship and all of the things you would want to do associated with it in one place. And then if there is some specialized system where a part of that relationship information lives, having access to that system through an API. That's really the goal. And that's what we've built and what we offer.
Talk to me a little bit in terms of time to implementation, because I think everyone that's joined today has seen a little bit around the UI and the UX, but typically from start to finish, how long does an implementation take?
So earlier, I very pointedly used the word configuration, not customization, because everything you've seen here is user configurable. So for example, if I look at vendor templates here, we have the ability to create for the user to edit templates, create templates, set up attributes, create new attributes, add them on the fly, edit existing attributes. So implementation is primarily about training, and a lot of it is actually working with our customers to figure out which of their existing workflows and kind of data elements they want to bring into Vendorful and which they want to add, and how they can think about some things differently. So it's going to vary by module. We take a crawl, walk, run approach. We want to have our customers getting immediate value if possible. So like for e-sourcing, the time to value is immediate from our perspective. Our goal is we get on the phone with you for an initial training session. Ideally, you will have a specific event, whether it's an RFP, an RFQ, or an auction you want to run. And by the end of that training session, you should be just about ready to send it out. So, immediate time to value there. For, things like supplier information, data integrations, that obviously takes a little bit more time, but weeks, not months. If you're able to come in with an existing set of supplier data, either from an ERP system or just an Excel file, we can upload that immediately and within a day or two create your vendor templates, and you'll have your supplier information ready to go. So it really depends on the complexity and how much work needs to be done really on the customer side to kind of get their data to the point where they're comfortable with it. But I will also add, we strongly encourage people to not overthink that and just start using it, start linking in the data, bring data, whatever its quality, into Vendorful. It will get better over time, and you can start to enlist your vendors to make it better through self-service. So it doesn't have to be months, let alone years. It really ought to take weeks.
And final question before we sign off. I assume that the different modules within the system can be purchased separately if someone wants to take a sort of Lego approach to it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And we strongly encourage that. We've got customers that are only using us for e-sourcing. We have customers that are only using us for supplier management. Like I said, in my mind, those things are very, very linked. And I think the highest and best use is to kind of have the totality of the relationship. But the other thing is, as I said, best of breed, right? You've got an e-sourcing module or e-sourcing solution you like. That's great. We can talk to it. If you've got a contract solution you like, we can talk to it. Heck, even if you have a supplier management solution you like and you just want the e-sourcing, we can work with that too. And so, yeah, it's all individual. It's all based on the customer needs. Each feature is usable in whole or in part. And we're flexible.
And as well, if you're starting in a greenfield role with digital transformation, especially if I'm speaking here more towards sort of mid-market businesses that maybe don't have the budget to do the big bang, but want to start with 1 or 2 modules and then branch out. I guess the advantage of a platform like Vendorful over going for a complete best of breed approach is that they know that if they start off with supplier intake and vendor management, that they can expand that to e-sourcing and contracts repository and performance management as next steps. And then, at least in theory, probably for most businesses, the only things that they'll need on top of that is some sort of P2P system and maybe something around risk management, ESG, or all the more sort of strategic higher end stuff that typically comes when an organization is more mature.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Fantastic. So a couple of things. If anyone would like to know more about Vendorful or wants to arrange a demo, you can just pop yes in the comments below and I will pick that up and pass that on to Peter. Otherwise, Peter, where is the best place for people to reach out to you to learn more?
Sorry, was that a question? I was reading the comments here.
Yeah, where is the best place if anyone wants to reach out and learn more? Where's the best place they can get hold of you?
We got distracted there. Vendorful.com is our website, and you can always email me at peter@vendorful.com or find me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find.
Fantastic. Peter, thank you very much for showing us the ropes today. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll be hopefully back again next month, although I will be coming from probably a winery in Argentina if it's the April one. Until then, have a good rest of your week. Stay safe and bye for now. Cheers.
Thanks, James.